Tanzania, land of endless savannas, land of idyllic beaches, land of Maasai and deep traditions. A warm haze envelops the savanna. Mud villages dot the landscape. Giant baobabs rise in the plains. Welcome to Tanzania. Welcome to the land of Kilimanjaro. Known for its breathtaking landscapes, this is a place where time flows to the rhythm of the Great Migrations, where the roof of Africa dominates the landscape, and where the colorful fabrics of the Maasai paint the savanna. But let's start from the beginning. Tanzania stretches across East Africa and is one of the most geographically diverse countries on the entire continent. Here rises Mount Kilimanjaro, which is the highest point in Africa. With its glaciers unfortunately rapidly retreating, it dominates the cultivated plains and rural villages below in isolation, almost like a giant watching over this land for millennia. But it's in the Serengeti that Tanzania reveals its deepest soul. The name itself comes from the Maasai term Serengeti, which means endless plain, and it's a definition that perfectly reflects what the eyes perceive. A horizon that seems never to end. It's here that every year one of the most extraordinary natural spectacles on the planet takes place. And we're talking about the Great Migration. About 1.5 million wildebeest and 200,000 zebras cross the Serengeti in a continuous cycle, following the ancestral rhythm of the rains, in a dance of life and survival that has spanned the centuries. This land, furthermore, guards the secrets of our origins. The Olduvai Gorge is one of the most important paleontological sites in the world, a true cradle of humanity. Here, remains of hominids from over 2 million years ago have been found, including the famous Nutcracker Man, which reminds us where we come from. Millions of years later, on this same land, an extraordinary cultural diversity flourishes. More than 120 ethnic groups share this territory, creating a cultural mosaic of rare complexity. Yet this nation has rarely known interethnic conflicts, thanks to the policy of national unity promoted after independence. Much of the population still lives to the rhythm of the land, with subsistence agriculture. Coffee, tea, corn, and bananas mark the seasons in daily life, especially in rural areas where the connection with nature remains intact and sacred. Despite widespread poverty and economic challenges, villages and cities maintain a strong sense of community where people share resources and traditions, finding richness in human relationships rather than in material goods. But it's also one of the safest nations in Africa and beyond. According to the Global Peace Index 2024, which measures the level of peace, security, and stability of countries, Tanzania ranks 65th globally, proving more peaceful and safe than countries like the United States, France, China, India, Turkey, and Brazil. Tanzania, therefore, is much more than a simple destination. It's an entire world. A place where nature still commands, and a land that continues to tell its story to anyone who visits. But now let's discover the most incredible and iconic places of this nation. Serengeti National Park. Imagine 2 million wildebeest moving together. It's not an exaggeration. It really happens here. Every year, in the heart of Tanzania, the Serengeti extends for nearly 5,800 square miles, or 15,000 square kilometers of savanna, and hosts one of the most impressive natural spectacles on the planet. The Great Migration. These animals cross the park following the rains in search of fresh grass. Zebras and gazelles join the journey, while lions, leopards, and cheetahs watch them from the shadows of acacia trees. The Mara River represents the most dangerous obstacle because in its waters live crocodiles up to 16 feet or 5 meters long, ready to take advantage of the crossing. The crossing lasts weeks and not everyone makes it. But the Serengeti is not just migration. When the savanna wakes at dawn, the air fills with the calls of over 500 bird species. Elephants stroll through the plains, while hyenas and jackals fight over what remains from the night hunts. The kopjes, which are rock formations that emerge from the flatland, offer shelter to predators and strategic observation points. Then there's the rainy season, when the savanna transforms. The grass becomes bright green, and thousands of wildebeest calves are born almost simultaneously. A survival strategy that confuses predators with abundance. The word Serengeti comes from the Maasai and means endless plains. And whoever arrives here immediately understands why. The horizon seems to have no boundaries, and the sky meets the earth in a line that continues infinitely. Mount Kilimanjaro. Have you ever seen snow on the equator? It seems impossible, yet Kilimanjaro is living proof. This mountain reaches 19,341 feet, or 5,895 meters, making it the highest peak on the continent. It's not part of a mountain range, but stands alone. It's a dormant volcano that dominates the plains of Tanzania. Climbing Kilimanjaro means crossing 5 different ecosystems. You start from the rainforests, where black and white colobus monkeys live, and then continue through alpine heaths covered with giant plants that seem to come from another planet. Higher up, the landscape becomes treeless, rocky, almost lunar. Every year, about 35,000 people attempt the climb. No ice axes or ropes are needed, but altitude represents the real challenge, because the air contains half the oxygen compared to sea level. And the body needs time to adapt. The name Kilimanjaro could derive from the words Kilima, which means mountain, and Jaro, which is a direct reference to its permanent ice crown that shines under the African sun. Zanzibar. Transparent waters where you can see the bottom at 33 feet or 10 meters deep, and white sand that burns under your feet. Zanzibar is this, but not only this. It's an archipelago 25 miles or 40 kilometers from the Tanzanian coast in the Indian Ocean, and offers a stark contrast with the mainland safaris. The beaches of the East Coast completely change appearance twice a day. When the tide recedes, the water moves away up to half a mile or a kilometer, revealing expanses of sand and pools where colorful fish swim. The coral reef, normally submerged, emerges in all its extension, showing the complexity of a tropical ecosystem rich in life and colors. Then the tide rises and everything goes back underwater. And then there are the spice plantations that cover the interior of the island. Cloves, vanilla, and cardamom. Here grow the plants that for centuries have attracted merchants from every corner of the world. At sunset, traditional sailboats with large triangular sails, called dhow, depart for cruises along the coast. These wooden boats have crossed the Indian Ocean for over 1,000 years, following the monsoon winds which change direction with the seasons. Ngorongoro Crater. A volcano exploded here 3 million years ago. What remains is a natural amphitheater 12 miles, or 20 kilometers wide, with walls that rise 2,000 feet, or 600 meters all around. The crater floor hosts a closed ecosystem, a sort of African Noah's Ark, where about 25,000 animals live. The peculiarity is that many of them never leave the crater. Why should they? Here they find everything. There's fresh water from Lake Magadi, fresh grass fed by the rains that fall on the walls, and prey in abundance. You can also spot black rhinos, one of the rarest species on the continent, along with lions, elephants with enormous tusks, and pink flamingos that paint the shores of the lake. The Maasai bring their herds to graze on the floor during the dry season. This pastoral people has obtained permission to share the space with wildlife, maintaining ancient traditions alive. The road that descends into the crater travels along the steep walls, offering views that change at every curve. Then once on the floor, you find yourself in a world apart, protected and isolated from the rest of the savannah. Stone Town. Getting lost here is part of the game. The alleys of Stone Town form a maze without logical map, where every corner hides something unexpected. The carved doors tell different stories. In fact, those with brass studs belonged to wealthy merchants, while floral motifs indicated families of Indian origin. This has always been a port and has connected Africa, Arabia, and Asia for centuries. In the streets, mosques, Hindu temples, and Catholic churches mix, testimony of who has passed through here. There's also the Darajani market that pulses with life, with spices, fresh fish, and tropical fruit you've never seen before. At sunset, Forodani Gardens transforms into an open-air restaurant with illuminated stalls preparing Zanzibar pizza, which is a sort of stuffed crepe, and freshly grilled octopus skewers. People sit on the walls overlooking the ocean, while the dhows return to port with swollen sails. Lake Victoria. Calling it a lake is absolutely reductive. With 26,300 square miles, or 68,000 square kilometers in fact, Victoria is an inland sea shared between Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya. Its fresh waters nourish 30 million people who live along the coast. Fishermen leave at night with their boats, chasing Nile perch, which can weigh over 220 pounds or 100 kilos. This fish arrived here in the 1950s and completely changed the lake's ecosystem, supplanting many native species. Today, however, it represents a fundamental economic resource, though controversial. There are islands that dot the surface, and some host fishing villages, or others that are natural sanctuaries where hundreds of species of water birds nest. Mwanza is the main city on the Tanzanian shore and overlooks the water among granite rocks, smoothed by time. The lake, furthermore, regulates the climate of the entire region. The rains that fall here feed the White Nile, which flows for thousands of miles to the Mediterranean, connecting half of Africa through a network of water as ancient as life itself. Tarangire National Park. The elephants arrive by the hundreds during the dry season. Tarangire becomes their refuge when the rivers dry up elsewhere, and they're attracted by the water of the permanent river that crosses this park. You can see herds of over 300 individuals, from females with calves to solitary males, with tusks that touch the ground. The baobabs dominate the landscape and are ancient trees with swollen trunks, capable of storing thousands of gallons or liters of water. Some are over 1,000 years old and become home to birds, bats, and small mammals. Their twisted silhouettes create scenery that looks like paintings. But Tarangire also hosts a population of tree-climbing lions, a rare behavior observed only in a few places in Africa. During the hot hours, in fact, they rest on the low branches of acacias, escaping the heat of the ground and annoying insects. This park receives fewer visitors compared to the Serengeti, but offers more intimate experiences with wild nature. Dar es Salaam. The name means haven of peace in Arabic, and this port city beats to the rhythm of the Indian Ocean. It's not the political capital of Tanzania, but remains the economic heart of the country, where goods arrive from all over the world. fish markets open at dawn, with fishermen unloading tuna, barracuda, and octopus, while the city wakes up. The contrast between modern skyscrapers and historic neighborhoods tells the rapid growth of an African metropolis in transformation. Then there are the beaches of Cocoa Beach and Misasani that fill up on weekends. Local families gather under the palms, street vendors offer fresh coconuts opened on the spot, and groups of kids play soccer on the sand. Finally, ferries depart from the main port to Zanzibar every day. Lake Manyara. Pink flamingos that cover the water's surface, like a living cloud. When they all take flight together, they create a spectacle that transforms the landscape. Lake Manyara is alkaline, that is rich in minerals, and therefore attracts these birds that feed on the microscopic algae present in the water. The park that surrounds the lake is narrow but rich. On one side, the escarpment of the Rift Valley that rises 2,000 feet or 600 meters, and on the other, the shallow waters of the lake. In between, instead, a strip of forest where baboons, blue monkeys, and leopards live. Here you also find lions, often relaxed on the branches of acacias. Perhaps they do it to escape insects, or for the cool breeze, but it's a rare sight to see. There are also hippos that populate the natural pools, fed by underground springs. Nungwi Beach. The north of Zanzibar ends here, where the open ocean replaces the protected waters of the coral reef. Nungwi looks toward the infinite horizon of the Indian Ocean, and the waves arrive with more force compared to the eastern coasts of the island. The dhow builders still work on the beach. These masters shape hardwoods and do everything without written plans, following only the knowledge learned by watching their fathers and grandfathers. The tides here are less extreme. The water always stays high enough to swim, and sea turtles swim close to shore and can be seen up close. When the sun sets, the beach bars light up, and music mixes with the sound of the waves. Lake Natron. Red, pink, blue. Lake Natron looks like an abstract painting from above, but those intense colors hide an extreme reality. The water here reaches temperatures of 140 degrees Fahrenheit or 60 degrees Celsius and a pH that approaches that of bleach. Few creatures manage to survive in these conditions, yet millions of lesser flamingos have chosen precisely this place to nest. The algae that thrive in the alkaline water produce red pigments, tinting the surface with shades that change based on concentration and season. These microorganisms represent the main food of flamingos that filter the water with their beaks, immune to the corrosiveness that would burn the skin of other animals. The lake is located in the Rift Valley at the foot of the Oldoinyo Lengai volcano, which is the only mountain in the world that erupts black lava rich in carbonates. When this lava cools, it becomes white, creating lunar landscapes on the slopes of the volcano. Periodic eruptions add minerals to the lake water, maintaining that particular chemical balance that makes it so inhospitable and paradoxically so vital for flamingos. Arusha. It's the gateway to Tanzanian safaris. Arusha is located halfway between Cairo and Cape Town, nestled between Mount Meru and Kilimanjaro. Here, most adventures towards Serengeti, Ngorongoro, and Tarangire begin, with jeeps loaded with luggage departing at dawn, headed toward the plains. The city's central market bursts with energy. There are Maasai wrapped in their traditional fabrics, selling beads and crafts next to merchants dealing vegetables and spices. But for those arriving here, Arusha is primarily the moment before the adventure. That place where final details are organized and where you buy the last necessary things before venturing into the savannah. Maasai people. Recognizing them is immediate because they wear shuka, which are red and blue checkered cloths, and carry elaborate sticks while guiding their herds. This semi-nomadic people has maintained traditions that go back centuries, despite the advancing modernity around them. Cows for them represent everything: wealth, social status, and dowry for marriages. Even the traditional diet revolves almost exclusively around livestock. The young warriors, called Moran, go through initiation rituals that include circumcision and periods of isolation in the savannah. The women instead create intricate jewelry with colored beads. Each color communicates a message, such as red, which symbolizes courage, and blue represents energy. There are also the boma, which are circular enclosures of huts made with dung and mud and host entire families. These temporary dwellings can be dismantled and rebuilt when the community moves, in search of new pastures for livestock. Nyerere National Park. Few know that there's a park bigger than the Serengeti. Nyerere extends for 11,600 square miles, or 30,000 square kilometers, in southern Tanzania, far from the main tourist routes. This distance keeps it authentic, with boat safaris along the Rufiji River that offer different perspectives on wildlife. Hippos emerge from the dark water. Crocodiles warm themselves on the muddy banks, while elephants cross the river. The shores host incredible concentrations of animals, including buffalo, antelopes, and giraffes that approach to drink, always vigilant about predators hidden in the vegetation. The African wild dogs, with their distinctive spotted coats, find here one of their last refuges. These hunters collaborate in organized packs, communicating through high-pitched sounds while chasing prey. The park finally takes its name from Julius Nyerere, who was the first president of Tanzania, precisely because his legacy lives on in this protected space. Kendwa Beach. It's located in Zanzibar and stands out from other beaches because the water always stays high, allowing swimming at any time of day. The sunsets here have become legendary. The sun descends straight into the water, tinting the sky orange and purple, while fishermen return with their boats. Beach bars organize parties by moonlight, transforming the sand into improvised dance floors. And then there are the coconut palms that bend toward the sea, offering natural shade during the hot hours. Resorts alternate with family guest houses, creating an atmosphere that balances relaxation and sociability. Mnemba Island. A ring of white sand surrounded by turquoise waters. Mnemba is a private atoll off the northeast coast of Zanzibar, accessible only to those staying at the exclusive resort that occupies the island. But the surrounding waters belong to everyone, and here one of the richest marine ecosystems of the archipelago concentrates. Green turtles swim among the corals, and dolphins regularly visit the area, especially early in the morning when they hunt in groups, creating waves and splashes that can be seen from afar. The coral reef teems with parrotfish, surgeonfish, and rays on the sandy bottom. The water is so transparent that you can see the seabed at 50 feet or 15 meters deep, and the currents maintain excellent visibility all year round. Also for this reason, diving and snorkeling are a must. Morogoro. The Uluguru Mountains rise behind the city, creating a green backdrop that contrasts with the surrounding plains. Morogoro lives to the rhythm of agriculture, with fields of rice, corn, and sugarcane that extend in every direction. The central market explodes with colors and scents. There are bananas of 10 different varieties that stand alongside mountains of tomatoes, onions, and cassava. The city is located along the road that connects Dar es Salaam to the interior of the country, making it an obligatory passage point for truckers and travelers. In the mountains above the city, rainforests host unique species like chameleons, frogs, and birds that scientists continue to catalog. Paje. The wind blows constantly on the east coast, and Paje has made it its fortune. This village has become the kite surfing capital of East Africa. Colorful sails fill the sky, while surfers move on the water, pushed by the wind that arrives from the Indian Ocean. When the tide recedes, it uncovers expanses of sand dotted with seaweed farms. Local women collect them every day because these marine plants are then exported to Asia for cosmetic and food products. There are also kite surfing schools that fill the beach with equipment and instructors. At sunset, the evening breeze replaces the strong wind of the day, and Paje slows down until the next morning. Kusini Beach. Kusini literally means south in Swahili, and the beach justifies the name being located at the southern tip of Zanzibar. Here resorts are rare, tourists even fewer. The sand extends empty for miles, interrupted only by occasional fishermen repairing nets. Sea turtles come to lay eggs on this coast. During nesting season, from March to June, females emerge at night to dig deep holes where they leave dozens of eggs. In the hinterland lies the Jozani Forest, a few miles or kilometers from the beach. This national park protects the Zanzibar red colobus, which are monkeys endemic to the island that live only here. Their white tails stand out among the green leaves as they jump from branch to branch. Materuni Waterfall. The water plunges 260 feet, or 80 meters, between rock walls covered with moss and ferns. This waterfall hides on the slopes of Kilimanjaro, immersed in a lush forest where humidity is felt on the skin and the air smells of wet earth. The natural pool at the foot of the waterfall invites immersion. The water is icy cold because it comes directly from Kilimanjaro's glaciers, but after the walk in the humid forest, that cold becomes a welcome relief. The path that leads to the waterfall crosses coffee plantations managed by the Chaga people. Here you can witness the entire process, from harvesting ripe red berries to roasting beans on wood fires. Concluding this visual journey through Tanzania, we've moved from endless savannas to legendary peaks, exploring together not only places, but also traditions that make every corner of this land unique. We hope the images and stories told have enriched your knowledge and stimulated the desire to personally explore the extraordinary beauty of this country.